Well, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. Probably for a lot of you, it's a busy work day, but I think this session will really sort of be worth your time. So before we can sort of move on, I can introduce today's speaker to you all. I would like to sort of set the context. So originally we were supposed to do this webinar on Women's Day to sort of address issues that women, in most cases, I'm sure men also face these issues, but I think it's women who sort of lead the cohort when it comes to, struggling with delegation. Women sort of, constantly fight a battle on whether or not to delegate a certain task to their friend, to their colleague, to their husband, to their siblings, be it whatever, right? And I think there are 2 to 3 key reasons why this happens. One is perceived lack of trust. So, I think women and men sort of feel that delegating tasks to others can result in a loss of control over the outcome. This can especially be true if the person is delegating it to somebody who they don't trust completely, or if they don't know the person completely. Now, another reason why this could happen is, fear of being seen as weak. So the reason you don't want to delegate is because you think that people around you will perceive you to be extremely weak, or somebody who cannot take that task to fruition. And this is often, related to cultural norms and expectations around gender roles as well. And I think the third reason that comes to mind is the lack of confidence. A lot of people sort of struggle and doubt their ability to effectively delegate tasks, especially when they haven't had much experience doing so. So I think one good example of this is somebody who's become a manager for the first time. Right, they have so many questions, they have so much self-doubt whether or not they will be good at that job, whether or not their team will look at them as a proficient manager or not. So I think across various aspects of life, be it at home, be it at work, be it in a social gathering even, a lot of people struggle with delegation, and today's webinar is, we've sort of come up with this topic to sort of address this very concern that people have about, taking off the load, trusting other people with responsibilities, and ensuring that by doing this, they also live a balanced life. So without further ado, I would like to quickly introduce our speaker for today. We have with us Prasida Sridharan. She's an education consultant, ICF certified coach and trainer. She offers professional services to startups, corporates, and educational institutions. Since starting her freelancing agency in early 2021, she has undertaken corporate learning and development, coached and trained employees across sectors. And as an ardent educator, she has engaged with over 1,000 teachers and 200 principals across the country through her master classes. Her interventions have been instrumental in implementing yearly needs analysis, self-assessments, and highly practical and rigorous staff professional development programs for her clients. And I'm so glad that we have her with us today. Thank you so much, Prasida, for joining in, and we look forward to the session. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tisha, and good evening, everyone. I am really delighted to be here to talk to you about delegation and women and men, of course, or as I would like to call it, delegation done right. So I think Disha really set a nice stage, and I'm sure the points that she covered, she told kind of, will be covered in this session. So it'll be great for the audience to, keep that in mind and connect back to what she said. So unless this is your first day in corporate world, you would have heard umpteen number of times what delegation is, why is it important, and that you cannot do it enough, you need to keep doing it. So we don't have to go over all the theory what delegation is, but I still want to tell what my take on delegation is and one of my insights, right? So in a traditional sense, if you see, delegate or delegation is a group of persons chosen to represent themselves in a bigger arena, right? So it is somebody who's chosen for a higher purpose, and people believe that that person will fulfill their higher needs, and hence given that responsibility with high faith. However, when it came to corporate context, I think delegation is become merely this task of just giving something to somebody and running away. And most of the time may not, or sometimes may, with the consent of the person involved, right? So I would always like to think, I would always think that it's funny that the same word in almost similar context, how different the connotations are. And it's just my insight if you want to kind of ponder over that after this session. But that's enough about my thought about delegation. And I would like the poll to be up now. So what we will do is we would want to understand your take on delegation, right? So there's a poll, it's a 3-question poll, not at all difficult. It's not an exam. So please take 20 seconds to read the question and give your honest opinion, right? So is the poll visible to everybody, Disha? All right.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Great. So question number 1, why is delegation an important management tool? Please select.
Yes, I think you can just check the circle beside the pointer, and that way your poll will get, your answer will get some.
Yeah. Why is delegation an important tool? I don't, for some reason, see the results here. There is an option to see the results live.
Let me just check.
While Disha is checking that, I request everybody to move on to the second question. A manager who is not delegating is not managing. True or false? Purely your opinion. There is no right or wrong answer. Yeah. Yes. It's nice to see most of you are of the opinion that it's a tool to help us achieve more, develop people, get rid of distasteful tasks. I like that. And the manager who is not delegating is not managing. Nice. I think we are having a good mix of people who think in both manner, and I really like that. Like, that's the crowd that we want.
I must say, very interesting options, Prasida.
Okay, so forget about the disc style right now, but it's about, like your natural style, you're comfortable with certain approaches, but this is probably more about your comfort level. So how do you meet the needs? Like, delegation needs to meet the needs of your direct reportees. What do you think? True or false? Yeah, in a way. So thank you so much for being fantastic. And I'm ending the poll right now. Thank you so much again for giving your, really valuable thoughts here. Right. Now, if you look at any leadership book, any article on Wall Street or all the other, websites that we can see, we see delegation is an important thing to do. We all need to do a delegation. Why? Because it improves the speed and quality of the decisions. It increases productivity of the team, and hence, even the individual skill of people will develop. It reduces your overload as a person. It increases the motivation of subordinates because usually they're taking tasks from their manager's plate, and that makes them feel good about themselves. And it also, in the meantime, provides opportunity for their development, right? So we know all these reasons why it is important. That's not why, we all, men and women, hesitate to delegate, right? The question is, who is more likely to delegate, a man or a woman? I would like for all of you to please type it in the comments, your answer. According to you, who is more likely to delegate a task, man or a woman?
Okay, so a lot of
Shruti
people
has kept the ball rolling.
Yes,
right?
men.
Okay,
and Akhila says both.
Okay, so I see people want to be a tie. Generally, okay. All right. So I'm also happy that, not sure about the statistics, but from my experience, it is both. Great. So, I mean, it's great if you are surrounded by men and women who delegate equally, but unfortunately, globally, this is not the case. The scale is highly tilted towards men. So, let's just deep dive into that a little bit, right? And like Disha mentioned, this is initially planned as a Women's Day seminar. So we wanted to address some key questions. Do women approach delegation differently from men? Do women leaders, tend to delegate their leadership or tasks to their subordinates less? And if so, why? That forms the first part of our session. And the second part was full of nitty-gritty on delegation, and you will have some actionable insights to take away. However, this is not just applicable for women. So even if the first half of my session, which is based on a research experiment, even though it talks about women and the study was conducted keeping women kind of in the center of focus, please note that a lot of times in different scenarios, even men can face these issues. So, with that disclaimer, I think I'll move ahead, and I'm sure you will, take it the right way. Now, we are going to try something, right? Men, women, I don't know. We're going to try this. Please write, not in the comments, but in a book or paper with you, write all the pending things on your to-do list for the week. All the pending things from your to-do list for the week. Now, I know it's only Wednesday. We have Thursday and Friday. Some of you may even work on weekends. That's okay. Even if you can't write all the pending things, at least write important 5 or 7 things, please. I hope all of you are doing that. And I'm giving you 20 seconds to do so. Hopefully you would have, gotten a chance to kind of reflect on 5 or 7 of most important tasks. Now, I want you to think about which one or 2 of those tasks can you delegate? Just put a tick mark against it, right? So you believe that those ones that you've marked tick can be delegated and others are non-delegatable. Absolutely fine, your prerogative. Just keep that with you. We will revisit this list maybe a little later during the session. I don't know your individual notes, but I believe that the percentage of tick and non-tick depends heavily whether you are a man or a woman. And you don't have to take my word for it. There isn't many studies that is conducted on delegation per se, or experimental research is conducted. That is why a very recent study that is done by Dr. Akinola, Martin, and Phillips in 2019 is very relevant, and a lot of leadership layer is looking at this research and seeing how they can use the insights to better the delegation in their employees. All right. So what did this research wanted to do? So these researchers knew that women tend to delegate less, but they want to know whether that's true. If true, what are the reasons behind it? How can we mitigate that? So what did they do? They chose some participants, 163 male and female, with enough experience, and gave them a scenario. You are a VP of a marketing, at a global company. You have a very busy week for you. You have 12-item to-do list, and one critical thing is to interview candidates for an important role in your team. You also have a qualified junior employee who is also quite busy. Now, this is the scenario that is given, and they are given a survey to input their thoughts on various questions. And through this, they understood that the likelihood of delegating the interview to the junior employee is much lesser in women compared to men. And not just that, women reported to have experiencing a lot more guilt in the process of delegation. And that's mainly because they feel the junior employee would perform poorly in the interview. He may not do a great job, and that caused them a guilt when they wanted to delegate that. So they thought, okay, this is a very interesting, kind of scenario to see. Let's see a field evidence, right? Let's see what happens when we actually delegate somebody. So again, they gathered male and female managers, all, in a diverse age range and good work experience. The question was, how much do you delegate and how effective are you in delegating? So remember, these are all managers who are expected to delegate a lot, right? So very interestingly, women thought that, very interestingly, women said that they delegate much lesser compared to men. So they self-reported that they delegate less, but they feel that they are an effective delegator just like men. That means men and women feel that they are very, effective in delegator. But for the question, do you feel like you could delegate more? I think, I can see Disha nodding. We all feel that, yes, I can delegate more. There's a lot on my plate. And the scenario wasn't much difference here. Now, great, but this is all subjective study. What if we actually give the opportunity to women to delegate? Right? Do they actually do that, or is the field evidence different from what they would see? So they had participants, undergraduate and graduate students. They put them in a leadership position. Each of them got a subordinate as well. Each of them, every one of them had several tasks to complete within a particular time frame. They wanted to see who delegated and how did delegation make them feel, right? And I'm going a little bit fast here because there are a lot of interesting things to cover, but at any point in time, if you feel that something is not clear or you have an insight, please do put a comment in that comment box, right? And we'll take it up. All right. So there is this guilt that is associated with delegation they saw. They also saw something interesting was there was a fear of backlash, right? Generally, or most of the time, women in leadership position feel that they might expect or they might face a backlash or something will come and backbite them. Something is going to go wrong. Something is going to blow up on their face. So that constant fear was also looming very large in their head. Again, not very surprisingly, who delegated? Men delegated much more than women. And the guilt and the fear of backlash was higher reported in women than in men. Now, there is not just this guilt and fear, right? Like there's a lot of feeling. So delegation is not just a task. Now they're saying there are some emotions associated with this as well. Again, what do researchers do? They do more of research. Again, participants are called in with diverse companies, age range. They asked them, how does delegating make you feel? What is the feeling associated with delegation? Right? So before we look at what the research said, I would like to know from you all participants. Please type in the chat, either in a word or max 2 words, how does delegation make you feel?
Let me start off. I think I would feel a little incompetent, even though even if my plate is full, the whole idea of just giving my work to somebody else would just make me feel like maybe I'm not competent enough.
So your one word will be incompetent, right? So Disha is going to get the ball rolling for the comments. What about everybody?
Yeah, please, if you all could put in your answers in the chat box, I'll quickly read them out for Prasida. I think let's give it a minute. I'm sure people are sort of wondering
what that word should be.
Yeah.
Sure.
What would your response be to this question?
Mine?
Yeah.
How does delegating make me feel? Now it's a little different, but for most part of my professional life, it was too tiring, not worth it.
Okay, so Subramanya has said that it for him it's empowering someone.
Very nice, very nice.
I think it's a very positive way to look at it.
Yeah, time consuming. I can also relate to what Khushbu is saying. Maybe a couple more. Stressful, less multitasking, makes you feel productive and free. Nice. Right. So again, we are seeing a very mixed kind of responses here, right? Now, what are the feelings that women, reported to have in this study? there were negative mood that was reported, higher levels of negative mood. Delegation put women in a much less positive mood. There was a significant increase in the anxiety that came with the delegation process. And again, there is that guilt factor that is always running behind them, right? So there are all these, negative feelings associated with it. But why is that, right? Like, why do females and many men also at times feel so much negative emotion towards delegation? So what traits do men and women associate with delegation is something that they wanted to know. So what did they ask the participants? They asked the participants to associate the following adjectives with delegating. Some adjectives are supportive, developmental, considerate. See, these adjectives are being very communal, very nurturing. They also asked the participants to associate the following adjectives: powerful, confident, aggressive, controlling. It's related to dominance, or they call it agency. So they wanted people to associate the following adjectives with the term delegating. Very surprisingly or interesting. Oh, okay, before that. So why did they ask them to rate it in a communal and agentic manner? Right? So communal is more nurturing, like I said, more, kind of all-encompassing, and it aligns with the gender role stereotype of women, right? Women are expected to be more warm, more relational, more nurturing, and they get rewarded for engaging in such behavior. And hence, when delegation is a communal aspect, it helps women to delegate. Now, why agentic, right? Agenting is usually misaligned with gender role stereotype. Women are not expected to be assertive. They don't want to be seen as aggressive, and they get penalized for engaging in such behavior. So they feel that delegating hurts women, and hence there is an agentic connotation to it, right? So this is what it's a little bit of explanation on communal and agentic. Now let's see what the statistics really said. Very surprisingly, you can see that women rated delegation equally. It's equally communal, equally agentic. However, this is where it's interesting with the men here, that men rated delegation as much less agentic. That means men don't really feel that by delegating, they are they're overpowering somebody, they are intimidating someone. They merely tend to see it as, as simple as it is, right? Delegating a task. So it's interesting to think that, a same behavior, it's communal and agentic, aka it's good and bad, equally good and bad, but still people would refrain from doing something. Why? Because of the previous said reason, right? Women are not expected to be agentic. So, that portion of it being agenting is looping hard in their minds, and hence they tend to do it lesser. So what do we know so far, right? Women are less likely to delegate an interview. They self-reported that they delegate less. They do delegate less when given an opportunity. Associate delegation with negative mood and anxiety. They experience guilt. They also have the fear of backlash. They associate delegation with both communal and agentic traits, all relative to men. Now, again, I'm just reiterating here. This could be men as well sometimes for some specific tasks as well, right? So don't, I request men not to shut off. This is equally applicable to all of you as well, right? So all this relative to men. So whenever there is a gap, what do researchers do? They try to see how that gap can be crossed. So how do you get women to delegate, right? What will motivate you to delegate? Again, can I ask you to maybe unmute one person who would very quickly like to share in 20 seconds or so, what would motivate a woman to delegate? Anyone?
Would anybody, we can of course unmute you if you would like to talk to us. Please just let us know your name in the chat box and we'll unmute you. Or you could even raise your hand, in fact.
What would motivate you to delegate more? it's just based on your experience. There is no right or wrong answer. So please feel free to volunteer. And that's how we make it interactive and engaging. Should we actually pick? Okay, yeah. So I think Khushi has raised her hand.
Okay, so let's unmute Khushi, please.
Yeah. Hi.
Thanks,
So,
Khushi.
I think if I'll have the trust that the other person is going to do it as skillfully and as perfectly as I would do, I would be able to delegate. And
Okay.
also, if I would have that feeling that this person won't feel overburdened, so I feel that this person would take interest in doing that. So there are some tasks that are not interesting and they are like the formalities to be done. So neither I like to do that nor the other person. But if the other person would feel, oh, she's giving it for me, so to get it off her plate. So that feeling shouldn't be there in the other person. So that's
all right. Thank you
how I
so
feel.
much, Khushi. Even without delegating, you're already conveying the guilt and anxiety, and I hear you, right?
Prasida, so Akhila has said that
Okay.
to include everyone and succeed in our mission.
That
what
would
she said.
motivate. Absolutely, right? Nice. So you see, in this crowd itself, you see people associating delegation with communal and agentic traits. So, that's very interesting. Now, how to get women to delegate more? They actually went to women who delegate, right? They went to senior executives who are women of global companies with diverse age range and asked them, what motivates you to delegate? And here is the result for all of us to see. It helps employees with career. It helps them grow. I will be viewed as a good mentor, as I'll be viewed as someone who teaches employees new things, etc. There was also some other aspects to it, that I'll be viewed as an effective manager. I'll be getting things done more efficiently, etc. But if you look at the rating, it was interesting to see that most of the people rated very communal aspects of delegation to be something that motivates them further. Oh, and there is also this another interesting thing that I missed to tell earlier, right? So when men and women participants are given subordinates and asked them to actually delegate a particular task. So we actually covered that in a previous slide. They were actually videotaping, right? So they wanted to know how exactly this process of delegation is happening. How is the interaction? They wanted to see if they can get some insights, right? So, and I'm going to call myself out here. If I had to delegate something to somebody, I would go to them very, nicely and say, hey, how was your weekend? How are you? Are you busy? There is something that I wanted to give you. I am doing this. And I go in circles and circles. I beat around the bush and I feel so bad, right? Like, so hence I tend to talk a lot. Even our researchers felt the same, and they wanted to see how actually is the interaction. What they also asked the subordinates to do is that they were asked to rate all the managers, men and women, rate them on how good a mentor they are, how great a leader they are, how motivating or inspiring they are to you, how much do they help you develop, etc. What did they see in this? Women tend to interact much lesser with the delegatee, if I may use that in this context. Women tend to, interact much lesser with the delegatee than men, probably because of the kind of guilt, right? So it's like, I'm already overburdening them. So here it is, please do it. Thank you. Bye. We also don't want to confront sometimes, right? But what happened at the end is that when these managers were rated, men were significantly highly rated as being, a much better mentor, as a better leader, better inspiring person, etc., compared to women. So it's also a little, sad or paradoxical to think that women actually feel that, delegation is bad. They feel, guilt and anxiety doing that. At the same time, because they don't do it, they are seen as weak and, kind of not a perfect manager. So, so that's something for all of us to think of, right? So just because we don't delegate, we are not necessarily become great managers or great leaders. So it's not that we are delegating, it is about how we are delegating, and that's what we will cover now. Right? So
Prasida,
yes,
if I
Disha.
can I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. So we had Lisa also who had earlier raised her hand. So we'll just quickly unmute her and see what she has to say.
Sure. Let's do that.
Can we please unmute Lisa? Lisa, can you hear us? Okay, I guess she's left. No problem.
It's okay. Yeah, sure. I'm also just being cognizant of the time, Disha, that's all.
No problem.
But yeah, cool. Now, so yes, we know that women tend to focus on the communal aspects of delegation. So this is again research. Now we have to do an actual experiment to see that. So again, they were participants, putting them in leadership positions, and everybody has a subordinate. And all these leaders, the participants, were asked to give feedback to the subordinate for all the tasks that they're doing. And embedded in the feedback were the tasks to be delegated. What they told the participants, one half of the participants were told that delegation helps subordinates by assigning these tasks, by delegating, you're being a good mentor, you're helping them develop. In the next research, they are going to be your leadership participants, etc. To the other half, no additional information were given, and they wanted to see how this impacted the process of delegation. So when no additional information was given about delegation, the negative mood associated with delegating were reported higher in women than when they were told that delegation helped subordinates. See how the negative mood significantly reduced even compared to men. Right? So this is again something, was a really an eye-opening for the researchers, and they were really now able to kind of get to the crux of what could be one of the looming reasons for women, or many times men as well, to be delegating less. So we have to ask ourselves this question: what tasks are there in our plate that we could delegate or should delegate? We already did that. You have your notes ready. Now, what is hindering you from delegating? Comments, please. Or anybody wants to unmute and talk, please let us know. What prevents you from delegating? You did say that it's the guilt, it's, you feel if they won't do it properly. But maybe this time, based on your past experience, why something failed, why a delegation failed, you can, yeah.
Yeah, can you please unmute Chaitanya?
What went wrong when you delegated last time?
Hi, Disha.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hi, this is Chaitanya. I'm CTO of Vinos. It's a startup. From my experience, it's mainly about the consequences of delegation. Because any small mistake could have tremendous consequences. Either we could have lost a significant client or a significant amount of users, or it could have bad impact overall on the business. And that brings me to the next point, which is the trust factor, right? What significantly reduced my ability to delegate was the trust factor, because I was unable to trust my team members with such tasks. Because as a founder, you are used to doing everything by yourself, and suddenly once you expand your team, it is tough to expect the same level of
absolutely
delivery from the others. And
yes,
but it is also necessary, as I understand that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Chaitanya. And Akhila also on the chat is really resonating what I'm thinking, right? Like expecting perfection sometimes prevents us from delegating. Now, again, people are not very different anywhere on the globe. What prevented people from delegating? People said that I can do it better. I won't be done well. I don't have enough people. I forget I will be seen as less capable. Disha, I'm looking at you here. Completing tasks that, that makes me feel good, proud. So a lot of these things are self-inflicted, right? So don't get in your own way. ask yourself these hard-hitting questions. Look at the tasks that you didn't tick earlier and ask this question for each of them. Is performing that task really important for your career? Is it something that feels personally important to you? If you have 1 of it or 2 of it, not 10 of it. Is it something you would feel guilty if you don't do it? If yes, banish that guilt from your life. And is it something that fills your heart? Again, have 1 of it, not 5. Right? So ask these questions, very hard-hitting questions, and look at it from an objective standpoint. Look at it. Who will suffer if I don't delegate this task? It's, of course, your subordinates and yourself and your team. Who will grow and develop if you delegate this task? Of course, it's all these people as well. Right? So delegation, we all know that delegation is important, but once we stop seeing it as something, a way to kind of being aggressive, something that, that is going to reflect upon us as being incompetitive, internalize that delegating is empowering people, you're coaching people, and it's actually taking care of them so that they are able to do the things that you do. Now, so that's the research side, right? Now comes the nitty-gritty of delegation. Who, what can be delegated? I'm not going to read out from the slide, but take 20 seconds to look through all the parameters that are on the screen, right? And then look at the list that you have with you. The non-delegatable tasks, according to you, does it fall under any one of this criteria? Like not 2, not 5, any one of this criteria. I'm sure the non-delegatable task will fall under any one of this criteria, most of them. If it is, then most likely it can be delegated. So I'll give you an example, right? Let's say there is a routine or repetitive task. So, this particular report that you've done every week or every month for a client, it's a routine thing, it's a repetitive thing. You use a lot of your judgment skills to kind of put things together. Great. You cannot delegate it, or you don't think you can delegate it because it doesn't have clear objectives. It, it's a little gray area, where to pull these things from and how exactly to do, what is it that you're trying to convey. So, it doesn't have objective, it doesn't have process and, all that. It'll be very difficult to teach somebody. So I better do it myself. No. Create an SOP, a procedure document, whatever you call it, right? Because it is a routine and repetitive task, by adding exactly what needs to be done, how the report can be pulled, what is it that you have to show from this particular data that you would get, so on and so forth, right? Like, so put clear objectives, clear procedures in place, and voila, you have a task that can be easily delegated next month for someone else to do. So very importantly, see if it passes one criteria, not all, and then make it delegatable by adding more parameters to it. There is also an interesting matrix called Eisenhower matrix. Some of you may be quite familiar with it. It basically asks us to put all our tasks into 4 different buckets: urgent, important, not urgent, not important, less important, less urgent, and less urgent and more important. Right? So I'm not going to go through it in detail here, but let this be like one homework assignment for all of you, right? Like, so if you're not aware of Eisenhower metrics, please Google that and do that activity yourself. And it should really give you a starting point as to what are some of the things that you can delegate from your plate, right? So that's a homework assignment, Eisenhower metrics. Now, who can it be delegated? Pick someone with enough ability to do the job. Pick someone who can find the time, right? Someone who is willing to do that job, someone for whom it's motivating, someone who it adds value. And most importantly, the last point, pick someone who can make this job efficient or better than you. Don't be afraid to delegate to someone smarter than you, right? And definitely Don't delegate things to your favorite, quote unquote. Don't try to be fair. Like, don't think that, oh, last week I gave this to him, so this time let me give it to her. No, it's not that game. It is very objectively looking at who passes this criteria on the left-hand side, and hence who is the best person to do that job. And don't always pick the most skilled person or the lowest performer in your team for certain tasks. Like, that will really demotivate those people. And don't always pick the most willing person. We all have at least one, I hope all of us have at least one of those people who are always jumping to do what we are saying. Someone in our team who is always willing to kind of share the load. Don't always pick that person, right? Like, don't be afraid of the confrontation or the interaction. It will definitely harm your processes and definitely demotivate your other employees. So, who it can be delegated and what can be delegated, we have now already looked at. Now, the most important part is delegating effectively so that you don't get discouraged by delegating and stop doing that. And the other people don't start dreading, the minute you walk into the office, their eyes should not be glued on the computer saying, oh my God, here she comes, and here he comes. I don't want him to now put anything on my head, right? So we don't want that. That's why we need to learn to delegate effectively. There are, we already mentioned, there are a lot of pitfalls or a lot of things that go wrong when we try to delegate, right? So if anybody, and I think we do have like a minute or so for this sharing, if we have anybody from the audience who want to narrate a very small story within a minute or so, what went horribly wrong, like from your real experience? If you can just share that with the audience, I think it'll be quite helpful.
Yeah, you could probably just, raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Can I nudge Akhila to talk if nobody else is raising?
Akhila, would you like us to unmute you?
People are looking for chat, I think, chat box.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you please unmute Akhila?
So tell us, Akhila, what went wrong last time? What happened?
I prefer perfection in almost everything. So, important tasks. I'm a lecturer by profession and the vice principal of the college as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I delegate duties on important occasion, sometimes last minute when we plan things, if I delegate, I could not accomplish whatever task is allotted. Hence, I ended doing things on my own. Do you expect, may I?
No, I think, yeah.
Have I met your expectations?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Disha, I didn't hear you.
No, I was saying we've understood, what she was saying.
Yes. So thank you so much, Akhila. Right. And so a lot of time, some of the pitfalls or, the roadblocks is failing to understand what to delegate to who. So have that clear understanding based on what we just said. I hope the recording of this training is also available later on. So, if you want to kind of do a quick recap and take your notebook and actually do this activity, it'll be fantastic. Now, delegating too much at a time is also really hard on the other person. And they, again, they will not want to take up any more work from you. Not staying involved to monitor progress. It's like you give the task and run away and, the other person has felt like I have no idea, no direction what I need to do. Or the other end of it, we tend to micromanage, right? So we can't have it both ways. Now, delegating without clarifying the level of authority is also a major mistake, and level of authority is very important in my opinion. I have a whole slide dedicated to it, so we'll get to that. And not being clear about the goal, vision, and timeline. So guys, when we are delegating, we need to put some thought and time into it, right? And that thought and time will be really worth in the long run. So understand what is the goal of that task? What is the vision? How does the end point look like? Right? And by when it needs to be done, have a clear understanding. And if we don't have that, we are going to end up in disappointment. Oh, and very, very important thing as well, that understand that, again, coming back to the point of perfection that people keep talking about, understand that this person whom you're delegating the work to might be doing this for the first time. So you cannot and should not expect that person to do it at the level that you're doing currently. But what you should do is allow for that mistakes and failure to happen, of course, within a controlled environment. And hence, people would feel more empowered, more comfortable taking up tasks. Otherwise, the more you hesitate to delegate, or the more you do all these pitfalls, like, you fall into this, the delegation is going to be a nightmare. And probably we'll have the same session next year as well, right? So let's not be in that situation. Let's take a hard look at ourselves, right? A lot of these self-sabotaging traits are causing us to not delegate effectively, right? Now, we're no longer talking about delegate. We're only talking about delegating effectively. So the best practices for delegating: clearly define expectations, exactly what needs to be done, and provide all the support that you have, all the resources. And if there aren't any resources, make one. Remember, SOP, procedure document, make it, explain everything. Do it one time so that the person will feel that they have everything to do that job well. Set proper deadlines, milestones, as in by this time you need to finish this part of the work, by this time you need to finish the next part of the work, so that clear milestones will help people know that, okay, they are progressing in the right direction. And also let them know exactly by when the deadline of that task is going to be. Throughout the process, throughout the time when the other person is doing the process, offer feedback, right? If they come to you specifically, like, give them feedback as to what they could be doing well, and definitely recognize their effort, if possible, publicly, right? It'll only, make you to be perceived as a great leader and not otherwise. And very, very importantly, agree on a level of authority. Right? And why I have a star against it, because in all my experience working with teams and working with startups, level of authority is something that people often miss out. And again, they never have a sense of accomplishment after delegating. So before that, right, like, just think that you have to set your team up for success. Don't think of it as an examination or assessment. Make sure that they succeed when you are delegating something. That will motivate them to take up more, do even better work, and it'll motivate other people around you to want to take tasks from you and do it. Right? Just imagine how great it will be where that people are willing to take tasks from you. So you don't need to feel the guilt. You don't need to feel anxiety. You don't need to feel any of those negative emotions when you know that you are giving people what they want. That will help them grow as well. Right? So it's completely up to you how you want to portray yourself as an effective delegator. Now, coming to levels of authority. Even if you don't take away anything from this session, like, this is one thing that I want you all to remember. Whenever you have a task that you want to delegate, many a times people say that, when I delegate, my expectation is very different. His expectation is very different. I wanted him to do this, but then he did this instead. So there is a lot of confusion as to how much authority each person, the delegator and the person that's delegated to, has, which is why there is something called levels of authority. So some tasks will be level 1. Do as I say. That means I know exactly what needs to be done. So just do this step, exactly what I've asked you to do. Do not deviate from my instruction. I have already researched. I know what needs to be done. All I need is a hand and a person to do this job. Right? Some tasks are level 1 task. So this way, the person knows exactly what is expected out of them and what they don't need to do what they don't need to waste their time. Some other tasks could be level 2, research and report, meaning you're expecting that person to take a bit more responsibility over the task, research the topic or do the groundwork, whatever it is, right? Convert it into your official, whatever, jargon, or, relate it to your technical work. Level 2 tasks means you want that person to gather information and report what they discover. Then you both will discuss it, and you, as an if I'm delegating, I will make the decision and tell you what needs to be done. So again, the authority is very clearly demarcated, right? Some tasks are level 3, research and recommend. So here you're taking one level up, especially if you're coaching some employees to be decision makers, to kind of have some level of authority in the team. Do this, research and recommend. Means you not only do all the groundwork, but you analyze those options that you got and recommend to me what is the best course of action. I don't want to put my complete brain. I don't have the time and mind space to do that. So I am delegating this task to you. So they know exactly that they need to research and they need to come back and recommend to you what is it. So even all their efforts can be in the right direction. By doing this, they also know that they should not be going behind your back or above your head, right? Directly talking to the clients about what they have found out or what their, whatever the information is. They know exactly that I'm supposed to research and recommend and go back, report it back to my manager. Level 4, decide and inform, means the person whom you're delegating to needs to decide what is the next course of action, how something needs to be done. I trust you to do all the research. This is the task. It's up to you how you want to do it. Decide. But inform me what you're doing before you go ahead and do that, because I don't want any surprises. Right? And level 5 is act independently. Right? This means any decision that you want to make, based on any number of choices that you have, it's all up to you. So you have handed over the task and you have completely off hands, right? So see, by categorizing or by looking at each task and see what level it is falling, do so very clearly, discuss this with the person whom you're delegating. So, you can avoid a lot of heartburns, a lot of misunderstanding and unnecessary negative emotions going around in the team. So they know exactly what their boundaries are and even what they're expected to do. How many times as managers have we felt that our teams come to us and talk to us without any idea what needs to be done, right? All they have is problem. So to such people, you would say, hey, you know what? I'm giving this project to you, research and recommend, right? Just imagine how much time and energy can be saved by having everyone in your team having this clear understanding of tasks. And that's how we delegate effectively. So address, after doing all this, proactively address any external resistance to the delegation. And most of the time, the resistance to delegation would be because they don't feel that they're supported, they don't, feel that there is expectation. So, all the things that we have done, if you, kind of put that into practice, you'll definitely, overcome the resistance that your team members will be throwing. Now, thank you so much for listening and participating fantastically during this session. But no session is over without me asking 2 questions. So, I request all of you to click on this link below. It's a Mentimeter link. Once you click it, if you are asked to input a code, please input 89454833. That's also in the chat. Can everybody give a thumbs up if all of you have clicked on that link? Disha, could you please check that for me? If
it's so I clicked on the link and I didn't have to put the code, so I'm guessing the code is not mandatory. Yeah. I hope everybody is able to access the link. It's in the chat box as well.
Yeah, it's in the chat box.
I didn't think. Akhila, so I don't think you need to put the code. Okay, let me share the link once again with all of you. Hold on.
So once you, just click on that link, you should be able to see a question there.
Yeah, I've put the link again in the chat box, if everybody could see.
And if you can see my screen, this is how, Disha, I hope this is how your screen is,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So just look at all the things that we covered so far, right? We covered why some people, especially women, and in many cases men as well, why they might be delegating less. What are the emotions? What are the traits that they associate delegation with? Who and what should be delegated, and how we should delegate effectively, and level of authority needs to be done. So all the things that we talked about, what is that one thing you will do differently tomorrow with respect to delegation? Okay, so some of the responses are already on my screen. I'm happy that people have started responding. I request others as well to think and share their answer. So I like that some people are looking at what can be delegated. They want to start analyzing that. That's definitely a great starting point. Clear expectations. I really love that. There is nothing more important than clear expectation. And trust me, it not just works in professional environment, it also works with your spouses. Clear expectations, right? So that's a great life lesson in general, I would say. Work by keeping in mind the level of authority. Whoever said that, a million thanks to you. This will really change the way how your team looks at delegation. How can I effectively delegate the work? So anybody who wrote that, I want you to think of what you will do to delegate effectively, right? Delegate as much as possible, depending upon the nature and caliber of the person. Thank you so much. And someone also said, I will share the task, however the result might be, right? Great job. And hopefully you will choose, I'm sure you will choose something that's very less risky and hopefully not client-faced. But yes, start delegating. And that's the only way sometimes you will get to know what works and what doesn't work, right? Someone was also saying that we'll evaluate tasks. Even if I can't delegate immediately, I will be making an SOP document. Thank you so much for doing that. You will be glad you did. So it can be delegated later. Right. So every time, and I did that even as an analyst, as a very fresher analyst at my job, what I did was every time I was doing a task, I was also on the side kind of making a procedure document. It was not the perfect procedure document, but at least I knew whenever there are interns coming or whenever any other person is there who is willing to take the job, I can easily transfer it to them. And that's the only way you kind of get to move upwards as well. I think structured format is very helpful. I'll closely follow the do's and don'ts. Thank you. Avoid common pitfalls. All the best. Also provide clear expectation with level of authority. Great. Now, next question. And how do we go to the next question? I'm just wondering how we can go to the next question. Yes. Now, I hope all of you can also see the next question. One word emotion you feel right now that the session is coming to a close. Disha, Pranav, Harshita, please do as well.
Oh, you want me to comment too? Okay.
Yeah, we won't get to know who said what. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so the responses are coming in. Some of you are feeling confident, some of you have clarity. Okay, some feel that there is some framework, which is great, right? I work better with framework. So, glad to hear that you looked at this as a framework that you can utilize. You're feeling enthusiastic. Yay, go show that enthusiasm tomorrow and delegate some work. You feel empowered. Nice. I also hope you feel not just empowered, like you don't just leave it there, but you actually go show that power through delegating effectively. Right? And someone is also feeling relaxed. It could be because it's kind of end of the day for most of you, I hope. So yeah. Another 20 more seconds if anyone wants to write their emotion. Okay. So confidence seems to be the majority of people, like, the maximum number of emotions, and the maximum number of people have put confident. So glad, and clarity as well. So glad that this session helped you be a bit more confident when it came to delegating effectively, and also gave you the clarity that you need to know how you can delegate better. So that said, I will leave you with this funny yet so true to life comic. Thank you so much to all of you for being fantastic audience and participating so well. I wish you all the very best, and have a great rest of the evening.
I would just like to add here, Prasida, thank you so much for taking us through such a detailed presentation, and honestly giving us a roadmap towards how we can start delegating if we haven't done that already. Personally, for me, I had so many takeaways from this session, and I will definitely connect with you offline to sort of share my views about where I thought that where my perception of delegation was maybe right, wrong, and what really delegation is all about. So thank you so much for lending us that clarity. And I'm sure everybody who's joined the session today is going back with a lot to think about, and a lot of actionables that they would want to sort of implement starting right now. So thank you so much, Prasida. And all of you, if you have any feedback for us, if you want us to come up with more, sessions around soft skills, sessions, a few more sessions about delegation, you can always reach out to us through our social handles. It is Onsurity on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, as well as Meta. Thank you all so much for your time today.